What would you do if the most terrifying predator species in the galaxy suddenly started imitating your cleaning habits, and you had no idea why they were doing it or how to make them stop? Marcus Chen asked himself that exact question as he watched three Valorian cubs aggressively sweeping a navigation console with their enormous fluffy tails. Their razor-sharp fangs bared in what he desperately hoped was concentration and not aggression. The console sparked once, twice, and then the entire holographic display flickered to life, showing what appeared to be an ancient cooking program from Earth's 21st century. The cubs chittered in apparent triumph. This was not how his first week as a cultural liaison on Station Harmony was supposed to go. Rewind 72 hours, and Marcus was stepping off a transport shuttle with nothing but a single bag and a determination to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. Station Harmony was the jewel of the Galactic Cooperative, a massive orbital platform where over 40 different species lived, worked, and occasionally tried not to accidentally offend each other into interstellar war. The station stretched for kilometers in every direction, a beautiful lattice of crystalline spires and organic architecture that somehow managed to accommodate the environmental needs of beings who breathed methane alongside those who would die from a single drop of water. Marcus had been assigned to the education sector, specifically to the Valorian integration program, which sounded impressive until he learned it basically meant he would be helping to socialize young predator cubs who had never seen humans before. The Valorians were apex predators from a high-gravity death world, standing nearly 3 meters tall as adults, with dense fur ranging from deep crimson to midnight black, retractable claws that could slice through starship hull plating, and tails that were essentially muscular limbs covered in the softest, most luxurious fur in the known galaxy. Their cubs were approximately the size of Earth tigers, but significantly more dangerous and equipped with those same spectacular tails that they used for balance, communication, and apparently, as Marcus would soon discover, amateur cleaning. His first morning on the station, Marcus reported to the Valorian Education Center, feeling equal parts terrified and determined, only to stop dead in his tracks when he saw her. She was standing in the center of the main observation room, surrounded by 3 tumbling, wrestling Valorian cubs, and she was quite possibly the most striking person he had ever seen. Her silver hair cascaded past her shoulders in waves that caught the station's artificial light and seemed to glow from within. And her skin had this subtle luminescence that made her appear to be lit from some internal source of warmth. She was wearing fitted tactical pants in a deep navy blue, paired with a cream-colored top that had some kind of futuristic stitching along the shoulders, practical and professional, but somehow still elegant. Her features were delicate and expressive, almost human, except for the pointed ears that swept back gracefully through her silver hair, marking her as Elvari, one of the elder species of the galaxy known for their wisdom, their patience, and their complete inability to understand sarcasm. Her name was Talia, and when she turned to face him, her violet eyes widened with something that looked remarkably like panic. One of the cubs had just bitten through her datapad, and another was attempting to use her leg as a scratching post. The third cub was sitting perfectly still in the corner, staring at Marcus with unblinking golden eyes that seemed to be calculating exactly how many pieces she could tear him in two if given the opportunity. "You must be the human liaison," Talia said, her voice slightly strained as she gently pried the cub from her leg. "I apologize for the chaos. They are usually much more well-behaved." "Usually." Marcus smiled, surprising himself with how genuine it felt. "They're kids. Kids are chaos. That's pretty much universal, right?" Something shifted in Talia's expression, then, a flicker of surprise, followed by warmth. "Most species find the Valorian young to be terrifying. You are remarkably calm for someone standing within striking distance of creatures that could theoretically disembowel you." "Theoretically?" Marcus asked, eyebrow raised. "Theoretically," Talia confirmed. And was that a hint of a smile on her perfect face? "In practice, these 3 are more interested in destroying furniture than flesh. This is Kira, Vex, and the one calculating your demise in the corner is Thresh. She is the youngest and has the most significant trust issues." "Can't blame her," Marcus said, slowly crouching down to appear less threatening. "Galaxy's a scary place when you're small. Even if you've got claws that could open a starship like a tin can." Thresh tilted her massive head, those golden eyes narrowing. Her tail swished once, twice, and then she turned away with what Marcus could only describe as theatrical disinterest. He'd been dismissed, apparently. The next few days established a comfortable rhythm. Marcus would arrive each morning to find Talia already with the cubs, patiently teaching them vocabulary or basic motor control, or on one memorable occasion, how not to eat the educational holograms. He learned quickly that Talia had been working with the Valorian integration program for 3 years. Ever since the Valorians had joined the Galactic Cooperative and needed help socializing their young to interact with less durable species. The adults are formidable negotiators and warriors, Talia explained during one of their quiet moments while the cubs napped in a pile of intertwined fur and tails. But they recognized that for true integration, their children needed to understand other species from the beginning, to see us not as potential prey, but as potential friends. She paused, and Marcus saw something vulnerable flash across her features. It has been challenging. The previous 5 human liaisons all requested transfers within the first week. Valorian cubs can be intense. I'm not going anywhere, Marcus said, and he meant it. There was something about this work, about these cubs, about Talia herself, that made him feel like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Talia's violet eyes met his, and for a moment the air between them felt charged with something unspoken. Then Kira sneezed in her sleep, a massive explosion of sound that sent the other 2 cubs tumbling awake in a chorus of startled growls, and the moment shattered into chaos as it always did. It was on the 4th day that the incident happened. The education center had a small refreshment area for the staff, equipped with basic food synthesizers and a few tables made from some kind of reinforced material that could theoretically withstand Valorian enthusiasm. Marcus had just finished his lunch when a minor emergency called him away, something about Vex having climbed into a ventilation shaft and refusing to come down. When he returned 20 minutes later, fresh extracted and only mildly traumatized, he found Talia doing something completely ordinary that would have completely extraordinary consequences. She was wiping a table. That was it. That was the entire momentous occasion. Talia had apparently spilled some kind of beverage and was using a cloth to clean the surface, moving in slow, circular motions as she methodically removed every trace of the liquid. But what Marcus noticed, what struck him as both adorable and slightly concerning, was the audience she had attracted. All 3 Valorian cubs were sitting in perfect formation, their enormous golden eyes fixed on Talia's hands with an intensity usually reserved for tracking prey. Their tails were perfectly still, which Marcus had learned indicated complete focus. Their ears were pricked forward. They weren't just watching, they were studying. Talia? Marcus said quietly. You have an audience. Talia looked up, noticed the cubs, and smiled with that gentle warmth that made something flutter in Marcus's chest every time he saw it. They often watch me perform routine tasks. It is how they learn. Is that not wonderful? They are so curious about everything we do. Right, Marcus said slowly, watching as Thresh's tail gave a single experimental swish that mimicked the circular motion Talia had been making. That's definitely wonderful. Definitely not concerning at all. He should have paid more attention to that instinct. 48 hours later, the station-wide alerts began. The first report came from the hydroponic gardens on Deck 7. A Valorian cub, later identified as Kira, had been found aggressively cleaning every leaf on an entire row of Terran tomato plants using nothing but her tail. The plants were fine mostly, though several gardeners reported being too terrified to approach their stations until the cub finished her work and wandered away looking satisfied. The second report came from engineering. Vex had somehow accessed a restricted maintenance corridor and was methodically sweeping every surface with his tail while growling at anyone who attempted to interrupt him. He had cleaned 17 panels before security managed to lure him away with what the official report described as emergency meat-based incentives. The third report hit particularly close to home. Thresh, the youngest and most suspicious of the cubs, had infiltrated the diplomatic reception hall during an active meeting between 3 different species ambassadors and had begun cleaning the main conference table with such focused intensity that the assembled diplomats were too stunned to continue their discussion of territorial rights in the Andromeda sector. Marcus found Talia in the education center, her head in her hands, surrounded by reports and complaints and increasingly urgent messages from station administration. I do not understand, she said, her voice small and bewildered. They have never done anything like this before. Why are they suddenly obsessed with cleaning? Marcus sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. I have a theory. Remember 2 days ago, when you wiped that table? Talia looked up at him, confusion evident in her violet eyes. Yes, what about it? They were watching. Really? Watching. And Valorian cubs learn by imitation, right? They see behavior, they copy it. Usually that's hunting techniques or social cues from their own species. But they've been around us for weeks now. Around you specifically. And I think, he paused, working through the logic. I think they saw you cleaning and decided that cleaning must be something important. Something they should learn how to do. Talia stared at him for a long moment, then buried her face in her hands again. Oh no, no. They are going to clean the entire station. Marcus struggled to find the right words. That's actually not the worst thing. I mean, it's chaotic, definitely, but no one's getting hurt. They're just very enthusiastically tidying things. A slightly hysterical laugh escaped Talia's perfect lips. You do not understand. Valorian imitation behavior does not stop. Once they have adopted a practice, they continue it until they master it. They could be doing this for months, years, possibly. We will have the cleanest space station in the galaxy whether anyone wants it or not. As if to punctuate her point, Marcus's communication device chimed with a new alert. The Cubs had found the station commander's private quarters and were currently engaged in what witnesses described as aggressive dusting. The next few weeks became a strange new normal. The Valorian Cubs continued their cleaning crusade with single-minded determination, targeting random surfaces throughout the station at unpredictable intervals. Marcus and Talia spent their days tracking, redirecting, and occasionally just watching in amazement as the Cubs swept through corridors like a furry cleaning crew, their tails working overtime. What surprised everyone, Marcus included, was how the station began to adapt. After the initial shock wore off, species who had previously been terrified of the Valorian young started to find them almost endearing. An elderly Zelthian merchant reported that Kira had cleaned his entire shop display and then curled up for a nap between the shelves, purring loudly enough to attract customers. A group of human children from the station's residential sector started following the Cubs around, cheering them on and occasionally pointing out spots they had missed. The Valorian adult delegation, initially mortified by their Cubs' unusual behavior, eventually declared it a unique form of cultural exchange and requested that human cleaning implements be studied and incorporated into Valorian educational curriculum. Through it all, Marcus found himself falling. Not dramatically, not in some lightning strike moment of revelation, but slowly, steadily, like sinking into warm water. He fell for the way. Talia laughed when Thresh finally let her touch her tail. He fell for the way she whispered encouragement to Vex when he struggled with a new concept. He fell for the way she looked at him, sometimes, when she thought he was not paying attention, with something soft and wondering in her violet eyes. It was 3 months into his assignment when everything changed. The Cubs had gotten more adventurous in their cleaning expeditions, and Thresh, the smallest and most suspicious, had somehow found her way into the station's central power core. The alerts that followed were not playful. They were genuine alarms, warnings of potential cascading failures if the cleaning continued in such a sensitive area. Marcus ran faster than he had ever run in his life, Talia matching his pace despite her civilian fitness level, her silver hair streaming behind her like a comet's tail. They reached the power core to find Thresh sitting calmly beside a critical junction, her tail wrapped protectively around a component that any contact with could theoretically destabilize the entire station's energy grid. Security was already there, weapons drawn, and Marcus's blood ran cold. Wait, he shouted, pushing forward. Wait, don't startle her. That creature is touching a Class 7 power regulator, the security chief snapped. If she damages it, we lose life support on 6 decks. She's not going to damage it, Marcus said, though his heart was hammering so hard he could barely hear his own words. She's trying to clean it. Look at her tail. She's being careful. It was true. Despite her awkward position, Thresh's tail movements were gentle, almost reverent. She had been watching. She had been learning. And somewhere along the way, she had learned that some things required a delicate touch. Talia stepped forward, her hands raised, her voice the calm, steady tone she used when the Cubs were frightened. Thresh, little one, you have done such good work. But this place is not for cleaning. This place is for the specialists. Come with me now. I have something better for you to practice on. Thresh's golden eyes fixed on Talia, then shifted to Marcus, then back to Talia. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then slowly, carefully, the cub unwound her tail from the component and padded toward Talia with a soft chirp that somehow sounded apologetic. The entire room exhaled. Later, after the crisis had been resolved and the cubs had been temporarily confined to their quarters for everyone's peace of mind, Marcus found Talia on the observation deck overlooking the stars. Her silver hair caught the light of a distant nebula, and her eyes were wet with tears. She was trying very hard not to shed. I thought I would lose her, Talia whispered. I thought they would hurt her, and there would be nothing I could do. 3 years I have worked with these cubs, and I never realized until this moment how much I love them. Marcus moved to stand beside her, not quite touching, but close enough. She trusted you. When everything was chaos, she looked at you and she trusted you to keep her safe. That's not nothing, Talia. That's everything. Talia turned to face him, and in the starlight, she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Not because of her delicate features or her luminescent skin, or the graceful sweep of her pointed ears, but because of the depth of emotion in her eyes, the strength and vulnerability existing in perfect balance. Why did you stay? She asked quietly. 5 liaisons before you. All of them left. But you stayed. Through the chaos and the cleaning and the constant fear that something would go wrong. Why? Marcus thought about the question. Really thought about it. Because some things are worth the chaos. Because those cubs needed someone who would see them as more than dangerous animals. Because you needed help, even if you were too proud to ask for it. He paused, then smiled. And because every time I thought about leaving, I realized I couldn't imagine not seeing you every day. Talia's breath caught. Marcus, you don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I know, I'm just a human, and you're Elvari, and there's about 100 reasons this is complicated. But I needed you to know that I'm here. Not because of the assignment, because of you. The silence stretched between them, filled with the distant hum of the station and the infinite light of stars that had burned for billions of years. Then Talia reached out and took his hand, her fingers warm against his, and the simple touch felt more significant than any grand gesture could have been. I am glad you stayed, she said softly. More glad than I have words to express. From somewhere in the distance came the unmistakable sound of enthusiastic tail sweeping, followed by a startled yelp from what was probably an unsuspecting crew member. The cubs had escaped their temporary confinement. Of course they had. Talia laughed, the sound bright and genuine, and Marcus found himself laughing too. We should probably go deal with that, he said. Probably, Talia agreed, but neither of them moved immediately. Instead, they stood there in the starlight, hands intertwined, watching the nebula paint colors across the void. You know, Marcus said eventually, I think this might be the first time in galactic history that an apex predator species adopted cleaning as a cultural practice because of one person wiping a table. My legacy, Talia said dryly. The Elvari who accidentally taught predators to dust. Hey, some legacies are written in blood and fire. Yours is written in spotless surfaces and confused diplomats. I think that's better, honestly. Another crash echoed through the corridor, followed by what sounded like Kira's distinctive growl of concentration. We really should go, Talia said, but she was smiling, and when Marcus squeezed her hand, she squeezed back. They walked toward the chaos together, ready to face whatever enthusiastic cleaning awaited them. And in the weeks and months that followed, as the Valorian cubs grew and learned and eventually taught their own cleaning techniques to the next generation, Marcus would often think about that moment on the observation deck. He would think about how the most unexpected connections could form in the strangest circumstances, and how something as simple as wiping a table could ripple outward into changes no one could have predicted. The cubs eventually did learn to moderate their cleaning enthusiasm. Thresh became the first Valorian to participate in a cultural exchange program on Earth, where she reportedly terrorized dust bunnies with unprecedented efficiency and became an unlikely celebrity. Vex developed a specialty in delicate electronics cleaning and was eventually recruited by a tech company who paid him in premium meats. Kira opened what she called a cleaning school for young Valorians, teaching them that sometimes the best way to understand other species was to care for the spaces they shared. And through it all, Marcus and Talia remained at Station Harmony, teaching new generations of cubs, building something neither of them had expected to find among the stars. You know what I think? Talia said one evening, years later, as they watched a new batch of cubs receive their first lessons from now adult Thresh. I think the galaxy needed this. All these different species, all these potential conflicts. And what brings us together? Cleanliness. Marcus laughed, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. Are you saying that the path to intergalactic peace is good hygiene? I am saying, Talia replied, her violet eyes sparkling with mischief and warmth, that sometimes the smallest actions create the largest ripples. You never know who is watching. You never know what they will learn. On the training floor below, a tiny cub noticed Thresh demonstrating a particularly elegant tail sweep and immediately attempted to copy it, tumbling over in a heap of fur and enthusiasm. Thresh chittered encouragingly, just as Talia had done for her so many years ago. The cycle continued. The legacy grew. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the galaxy became just a little bit cleaner, one tail sweep at a time. She wiped a table once, Marcus murmured, quoting the station's unofficial motto about the whole affair. And the predators learned to care for what they touched. Talia leaned into him, her silver hair brushing his shoulder. Best table wipe in galactic history. No argument here, Marcus said, and meant it with his whole heart.